Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. My name is Brandon Trump.
That was a very matter-of-fact welcome there.
Yeah,
it was. Zapped of some enthusiasm. Has Dominic Williams worn you out?
No, I just was kind of shocked when you said, all right, ready, 3, 2, 1. I was like, okay, here we go. So yeah, hey, we're here. We're going to talk some OU football recruiting, some transfer portal news. We're going to talk about basketball as well. So it is going to be a fun podcast for you Sooners fans. I think starting off by just giving kudos to Jenny Baranczyk, by the way. But
Reagan beers.
Yeah.
Ensuring that Oklahoma is going to lead the nation in women's basketball jersey sales this fall.
Correct. Not only that, but they returned dang near all of their production from this past season, and they add a All-American. Crazy. And she's the Pac-12 Player of the Year, right?
Yeah, 17.5 points per game.
Whew. I mean, come on now.
Why can't Jenny coach the men too?
That's already been said on OU Insider. Already been said.
It'll continue to be said.
No doubt. Sorry if I sound nasally. I'm super stuffed up. Allergies suck. So.
And it is that time of year. I've been feeling it the last few days as well. My name is Parker Thune. Brandon, I interrupted him before he
Yes, you did.
Introduced
I was about to tell you, Parker Thune.
That is who I am. This is the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast, and we have a lot of ground to cover. We'll work around a Porter in the basketball team. I think it's safe to say that is low on the priority list right now.
My mouth is shut. We'll talk about that later. I don't want to get riled up to start the podcast.
This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is brought to you by Mando. My guys, you ever lift a little too hard or just forget to apply your daily deodorant and get hit by a truckload of BO from all directions? Or does that 3-in-1 shampoo leave you needing a second shower just a few hours after the first? Well, from the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long-lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. And to top it off, Mando's cologne quality scents were created with men in mind. Pro tip here, try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It's a game changer. I can personally attest to this. You can get it in several different Mando products. I myself own many of the products in the Mando lineup, and that Bourbon Leather body wash is money. I've got it in a travel size. It goes with me wherever I go when I'm on the road, providing OU football and recruiting coverage to all of you. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code INSIDER at shopmando.com. SHOPMANDO.com. It's time to smell better naked. Your partner will thank you.
So let's start with Damonic Williams. And yes, I call him Damonic Williams because that's what Parker likes to call him. His real name is Dominic Williams. And he is a star transfer defensive tackle out of TCU. We're recording this on a Tuesday night.
It'll be posted on Wednesday morning.
It'll be posted Wednesday morning. Sometime during y'all's listening of this, he might already have announced where he's going to go.
And if so, well, I guess either way, OU Insider Live happens every Wednesday evening on the OU Insider YouTube channel, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. So Lord knows, whatever happens in the Dominic Williams saga, whatever the outcome is, we will be discussing it with you all, either reveling or commiserating in real time over on OU Insider Live tomorrow evening.
Yep. And so how do we want to go about this? He has visited Oklahoma. He has visited Texas. He's visited Missouri. And he took his final visit the last 2 days to LSU, ending today, as a matter of fact. Through all of that, there is still hope and still some quiet confidence at Oklahoma. And I want to add this before we get into it, Parker. It seems like a player like this would be make or break, right? Obviously, Oklahoma's thrown all their eggs in one basket, and it's the Dominic Williams basket. That said, they've already landed Jermaine Lole, excuse me, Jermaine Lole. They already have a really good defensive tackle room to begin with before Lole even arrives. Probably top 5 D tackle room in all of the SEC starting out. So much so that I was watching the SEC Mike podcast today, just kind of watching their banter and their post-spring game talks and what they thought. And they even said something I thought I would never hear somebody say about the University of Oklahoma, or at least that we haven't heard in a long time. And that was that defensive front for Oklahoma is nasty, and they're going to be really good. So I say all that. If Oklahoma is to miss out on Dominic Williams, it's not the end of the world. Oklahoma is still going to field a really good defensive tackle, defensive line across the board. You add him, and you can, outside of Georgia, you could actually say you're up there as one of the top tier D linemen in the SEC. And who would have thought, first year in the SEC, that was even an opportunity?
Well, and consider this, because obviously, if Dominic Williams ends up at Oklahoma, great. There will be celebration across this fan base for days, if not weeks, if not months, because that's like the 6th infinity stone for this OU defense. That's what really solidifies them as a force in the SEC, potential force in the SEC for the 2024 season. If they don't get him, here's what ought to be understood across the board. I think it is pretty well understood that Oklahoma made the largest financial offer they've ever made to anybody to try and get Dominic Williams on board.
Correct.
They offered his younger brother.
Yep.
They had him on campus on that last day of the visit long after he was already supposed to have departed Norman. They stretched that thing out as long as possible, try to give him as much runway to shut it down while he was in Norman as possible. At a certain point, man, you've done all you can do. And I think Oklahoma really has done all that they possibly can do in this recruitment. If it goes their way, great. If not, it's recruiting. Sometimes these things don't go your way. And sometimes you didn't screw it up. Sometimes it's not that you didn't do enough. Sometimes you just get flat out beat. And there's a chance that Oklahoma will just get flat out beat, because that happens.
I think if it's Texas or Missouri, OU fans are going to riot.
But if it's Texas or Missouri, again, I think most everyone is going to have a healthy understanding of why that decision was made.
What if I told you there's a world where Oklahoma basically said, doesn't matter what somebody offered you, we're going to top you? That sounded really bad. That sounded really bad.
That's some next level NIL ball playing right there.
I know, but it sounded really bad, so I'm going to rephrase that. All right. What if I said there's a world where they said no matter what NIL you were offered, we're going to match or surpass that? There's buzz that took place. I don't know that OU ever threw a number out, because I think they were waiting to see what others were throwing out, which is, I think, a smart move, by the way. Smart move. The only thing you have to worry about is somebody throwing in, like, what if they tell them, okay, well, we were offered such and such at this school, and it really never happened. They're just trying to drive the price up. So that's what I always don't get, because you can't really do contracts, right? And they're not going to allow you to take the contract to show to another school. So how do you trust, if you're other schools, what exactly was offered to these kids? You ever wonder that? Because you can just walk in and say, "Yeah, they offered me $1 million."
It's such a sticky game right now. Like, man, it has to be tough. It has to be really, really tough to navigate these waters as a coach, as someone involved with an NIL collective. This era of college football, just from a logistical standpoint, has become astronomically more difficult than the previous era. And to a certain extent, that's to be expected. There used to be no money in it for athletes. Now there's plenty of money in it. But even so, and I think there is a growing public awareness of this, I should say. There are no guardrails in place. There are no regulations. What statutes do exist can be easily circumvented and manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
And until the NCAA or some other governing body decides, you know what, we're going to start to put some restrictions on how all of this can operate, then it's going to be utter chaos, man. It is going to be utter chaos. And it already is. Shoot, you're seeing guys jump in the transfer portal for the third, fourth time. You're seeing guys that were just in the transfer portal in January, back in the transfer portal in April. And is it all because of NIL? No, but I would venture to guess that in 75 to 80% of cases, NIL is a very prominent reason why.
I would agree. I would even go even further and say that it may be more than that. Like there is a, and I think it depends on the player, right? It depends on who is running the recruitment. A lot of times when you get families involved, and it's just a family, there's more to it that they're looking for outside of just the monetary aspects of it all. When you get handlers involved, there's usually a cut. So you try to drive the price up. That way they get a piece and you still get what you feel you're worth at the same time. And that's a hard balance to navigate, particularly for most kids. Now, Dominic Williams, in this instance, he's got 4 SEC schools he's looking at. And all 4 are probably willing to pay just about anything he wants to get him.
Let's go ahead and call this what it is, because I don't know that anybody has put it in these terms, but this is essentially what it amounts to, even though it doesn't necessarily quite feel like it yet. This is what it amounts to. We have what is tantamount to the NFL with no salary cap and no contracts beyond a single year. It is the NFL on a bunch of 1-year contracts with absolutely no salary cap. That is college football right now.
That pretty much, there's no collective bargaining. So yeah, that's what happens. I mean, essentially it's a free for all. It's chaos. It's a wild, wild west. And we've said it over and over until they find some sort of regulation and happy medium. This is how it's going to be. Now, I think it's changing in the near future. I just think you're going to I think there's a world where the players unionize at some point and they strike to make sure they get what they want out of this deal from the universities. Because without football, those athletic departments are screwed. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, but until they figure something out, players like Dominic Williams will be able to ask for a king's ransom and they will get it.
Yep.
It's just the way it is and the way it's going to be. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it at this juncture. So, I'll say this. There is, like I said, there's confidence on the Oklahoma side of things. And there's confidence to the point where if you're Oklahoma, you feel like you've got a chance. And you've got a chance to make a wave. And if you're the other SEC schools and you know what Oklahoma already has coming in, and they add Dominic Williams, you kind of look around and go, oh crap. Like they got that thing rolling on the defensive side of the ball. And the offensive side of the ball, it's Oklahoma. You know they're going to have a squad.
Correct.
So
that's one thing that's never in question. And I would go so far as to say, one, there is, and I don't know that this is necessarily a hot take. I think most have a pretty reasonable understanding of this. There is no singular position where bringing in a true war daddy is going to raise the bottom line for your defense more so than defensive tackle. You bring in an elite defensive tackle, it changes things, and it changes things drastically for the rest of your defense.
Yeah.
And so does Oklahoma have a top 5 defense in the SEC sans Dominic Williams this fall? I don't know. Best case scenario, maybe. Do they have a top 5 defense in the SEC with Dominic Williams? Absolutely.
Yes.
My answer is yes. And
yes.
I think most that are looking at this objectively would concur. And I also think that should you get Dominic Williams, if this thing does fall OU's way, man, and again, this is natural, this is to be expected, but it bears repeating. The expectations are going to be a little bit higher. Both publicly and in the eyes of the fan base, people are going to expect more from you. I think the expectation probably increases by 1 win. I think people look at you, I think most nationally look at you as an 8-9 win team right now. Maybe that's a little bit optimistic. I know the Vegas over-under is 7.5. I think most respected national voices would agree that Oklahoma is bound for the over there. 8-9 wins. That seems fair. If you get Dominic Williams, I think the narrative shifts to the point where people are talking you up as a double-digit win team that can make some legit noise in the SEC and maybe sneak into the college football playoff.
I agree with that. I think the portal can change a team in the snap of a finger. And that's the difference. I mean, you saw TCU a few years ago. They just hit on everybody. And they didn't get a bunch of big names. They just hit. And sometimes when you hit and you get a lightning in a bottle at quarterback, things tend to fall your direction. If Oklahoma, obviously, everybody feels like they're going to hit with Deion Burks. Everybody feels like they're going to hit with Bronson Hickman right at center. Everybody feels like they're going to hit with Jermaine Lole. You hit with all of your big name transfer portal additions, Garen Hatchett, Michael Tarquin, like, yeah, I mean, even Sam Franklin, right? Like, there is a world where you turn around and you look and you go, holy crap. Like, they've got a chance to make some noise in the SEC. And I think that's what people are closely watching with this deal, because there's some Oklahoma buzz out there. I'm not going to sit here and say OU leads for Dominic Williams. Just I'm not. I'm not going to get your hopes.
Confidently say right
now. Yeah, nobody can. If anybody says they know where that guy's going, they're lying. Because everywhere he's went, The staff has walked away from everything we've heard. Whatever school they were at, the staff's walked away going, "Yep, we're in a good spot. We're in a good spot."
And when
So,
everybody's in a good spot, nobody is.
yeah, so that, or at least one team is, but who is that team? That's what the question needs to be asked. Um, so knowing what we all know, Parker, what do you think if I was to give you and ask you the percentage that Dominic Williams is a Sooner, what would you say? I would say
25%. It is 25% for every single one of the Final Four schools right now, in my mind.
that is called hedging your pick.
No, it's not hedging.
There's four schools.
There's nothing to hedge. Is it maybe a cop out? Sure, you could look at it that way, but
I'm looking at it that way. I'm going to say 30%.
Wow, 30%. Okay.
I got more balls than you, bro.
We're going to wake up tomorrow morning and not a single fan base, not Oklahoma, not Missouri, not LSU, not Texas, is going to feel like they're out of it for Dominic Williams. And no fan base is going to feel like they're definitely getting Dominic Williams. That's what it's going to be on Wednesday morning.
That's fair. That is really, really fair. So I guess I have to ask this question.
Okay.
If Oklahoma lands Dominic Williams, we have put our over-under at, I believe, 8.5 between me and you, right? I think it was 8.5, 9.5, maybe. Does that change for you? The one addition?
If they get Dominic Williams, I think they're a 10-win team. I think they win 10 games with Dominic Williams on board.
Huh.
Because again, like that is the missing piece on defense right now.
But is it really the missing piece? Like we just said, they're going to be really good at defensive tackle regardless if they have him or not. Now, it does take you to a level that.
Yeah, look, I think Oklahoma, maybe missing piece isn't the right term. I think Oklahoma is going to be a good defensive team in 2024. Dominic Williams is what pushes him over the top.
Yeah.
And I think you feel great about your secondary right now, feel great about your linebackers, feel great about your defensive ends. Defensive tackles, you feel good. You feel good right now. And it's okay to feel good. But what would make you feel great is the addition of a guy like Dominic Williams.
Yeah.
That's what tips the scales.
Huh. Interesting. All right. Let's move on to cornerback recruiting.
Ooh, okay. Hot topic obviously. Right now.
It is a very hot topic.
One on Sunday.
Correct. Cortland Guillory, 4-star defensive back, committed out of the Houston area, committed to Oklahoma. I think is he the Fort Bend Marshall? He's from Fort Bend Marshall?
No, he is from Klein Oak.
Klein Oak. Okay. I always get those guys confused down there. So Klein Oak, and that was one that everybody knew was going to take place, but still it put Oklahoma up to the number 4 spot in the 2025 recruiting on rivals.com. Huge get for Oklahoma. Another really good addition. That's the second cornerback taken. The other one obviously being Malik Hawkins, who looked really good, by the way, at the Rivals camp on Sunday. I went ahead and put in and flipped my future cast from OU to Texas A&M for one 4-star defensive back, Kobe Sellers. And there was some uproar over that. Like, how could they, lose him? They were leading for so long, yada, yada, yada. On that same token, Notre Dame Rivals guy decided to flip his pick with Tristan Haynes, 4-star defensive back out of Carl Albert in Oklahoma, Midwest City, Oklahoma, from Notre Dame to Oklahoma. So there was a little give and take. They can only really take three. They were never really going to take four. And that was kind of the ordeal. I specifically talked to somebody today and they were like, it could have got really dicey had everything went positively for Oklahoma with both.
And to be clear, no one on the OU end is necessarily happy that Kobe Sellers is trending to A&M right now. Like, don't
No.
take that. Don't interpret that as us saying, well, it's it's all fine and well. Everybody's actually like that. No, it's one less problem. No, the Sooners would love to have Kobe Sellers. They would love to have him. He has been a priority target near the absolute top of the board overall, not just at cornerback, for well over a year.
Yeah.
And so they have put a lot of time and effort into recruiting that kid. He has been to campus umpteen times. He has developed awesome relationships, not just with the commits in Oklahoma's 2025 class, but with a lot of the current players on the roster as well. And so OU was in the driver's seat here for months. And this has only begun to change in the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are, a week and a half out, and the expectation is that he's going to be an Aggie on May 11th, which you've seen recruitments take this type of a twist in the past. Trending to OU, boom, it's A&M. The David Hicks debacle kind of stands above the rest, but it's far from the only one, right? Far from the only time that we've seen a kid trending to OU wind up at Texas A&M. But even so, this one, if it indeed is A&M, it does kind of sting. The grace in it, the solace in it, is that you have Malik Hawkins on board, you have Cortland Guillory on board, and you can go make a push. You can press for Tristan Haynes, see if you can get him on board as well, at which point you have three cornerbacks that are built for the SEC. Those dudes are SEC corners through and through. And again, missing out on Sellers, okay, sure, it kind of sucks. But when if he commits to A&M, if and when he commits to Texas A&M, you're not all of a sudden wandering around going, well, where do we go from here? Like, who do we offer? We got to go further down the board. No, you know what the path forward involves, and it involves making a harder and harder push for Tristan Haynes and making sure he stays home.
Yeah, they got to go all in there, right? Like,
yeah,
you've got other options, but it just, I'm sorry. If you miss out on that guy, top 200 guy, rivals 200 recruit, and you missed out on Kobe Sellers, that is just a swift kick to the groin, man, if you're Oklahoma. It is.
But let me float something to you. Let's say right now that Oklahoma does get Tristan Haynes, who is the one guy from that Carl Albert crew that for the longest time we'd been skeptical about.
Tristan Haynes.
Let's say they get Tristan Haynes. Let's say they close out the CJ Nixon recruitment as is expected. Yep. Let's say they close out the Anthony Agumaro recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Nate Roberts' shoes, you feel like it's going to be difficult not to at least be noodling on the decision that you made to pick Ohio State over Oklahoma when the fall rolls around and every other big name in the state is committed to Oklahoma and your brother is playing for the Sooners.
That to me, I think that is the obvious issue that's going to arise at that point, particularly because you're going to be in Norman almost every week watching your brother play. I'm sure he'll catch a touchdown or two or three, right? You're probably going to see Bauer Sharp look like probably more like Braden Will. I don't want to sit here and say like all conference tight end because I think that's an over exaggeration of what he probably is going to be this season. I think he's going to be formidable. He's going to have some decent stats. He's going to have some decent games. And you're going to see all those things play out in front of you, knowing that you're probably twice the talent all those guys are, and thinking, okay, they're doing that with those guys. I bet you they can do a lot more with me and all of my dudes from the state of Oklahoma in a top 3 or 4 class that they're bringing in probably can make some noise at the end of the day. And so I look at that and I kind of agree with you. I mean, does that not have like Peyton Bowen vibes a little bit?
No, it does have Peyton Bowen vibes. And look, I don't necessarily have any expectations that something's going to happen. Nate Roberts has already effectively said no to Oklahoma twice in committing to Notre Dame and then committing to Ohio State. I don't necessarily have the expectation that his mind is going to change. But I guess what I'm saying is all of the factors are there that are going to compound upon one another to make it very, very
Yep.
uh difficult maybe isn't the right word, but it'll have him thinking.
Right.
It'll have him thinking. And I mean, you look at the 9 blue chip players right now. Well, I guess 8 with Kevin Sperry transferring down to Denton Guyer, but 8 blue chip players in the state of Oklahoma right now. One of them is Broderick Scholl, who's a transplant from Missouri. Oklahoma's never really seriously pursued him. He's not going to go to Oklahoma. The rest of these guys, Jaden Nickens is back on the market, but he was committed to Oklahoma for quite a long time. Everybody else on this list, Elijah Thomas, OU commit. Alex Shieldknight, OU commit. Trinae Washington, he's an OU commit. CJ Nixon, we expect him to be an OU commit. Tristan Haynes, trending in the direction of being an OU commit. Then you got Nate Roberts. And Nate Roberts is kind of, in many ways,
Marcus James,
the odd man out. And of course, you have Marcus James committed as well. Yep. So, and he probably will be in 4-star territory by the time the season rolls around. So, the best in the state of Oklahoma, for the most part, are all committed to Oklahoma. And then you have that one that's committed to Ohio State. And that's kind of how it was in the fall of 2022 at Denton Guyer. Was Peyton Bowen was committed to Notre Dame, and everybody knew that, everybody figured that he was going to decommit from Notre Dame. And there was all that smoke about, and also the fact that he just visited Oklahoma over and over and over and over again. And what happened. The outcome favored Oklahoma in the end. Will the outcome favor Oklahoma in the end with Nate Roberts? Not necessarily, but it's also not difficult to see some parallels there. There are definitely parallels.
There's major parallels, but at the same time, I'm with you. I don't know that it has the vibe, but I don't know that you can sit there and confidently say, yeah, I don't see him signing at Ohio State like we did with Peyton Bowen and Notre Dame. Like, we knew he wasn't going to Notre Dame. Or at least you and I knew, and anybody that would talk to him off the record knew he wasn't going to Notre Dame. No matter what he was telling the people in the South Bend, we knew he wasn't going to Notre Dame.
I guess here's my standpoint on it. And I remember basically saying this same thing about Peyton Pierce, coincidentally, another Ohio State commit, eventual signee in the 2024 class. It almost feels to me like something would have to go wrong on that side. Something would have to go wrong on the Ohio State side to change Nate Roberts' mind. Which is not out of the question. Obviously, things change in college football. Coaches leave for other jobs. There are shakeups on staff. You might have a situation where a particular unit or a particular position group just kind of falls flat on their face, and that gets a kid thinking again about his decision. But it feels to me like something would have to go wrong at Ohio State, regardless of what that is. That, I feel, would be the linchpin in getting Nate Roberts to reevaluate his decision, because absent that, while I think it is something that's worth monitoring, not something worth building expectations over to me.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair way to put it. So let's discuss a few other positions in the 2025 class. Defensive tackle, something we discussed a little bit off air. Let's dive a little bit more there, because obviously, you got Cole Breiler, you got Christian Evans, You got Kamari Moore already committed. You've got Trent Wilson, who is going to end up being, I think, potential rivals top 50 guy when it's all said and done. Um, how do you feel like Oklahoma closes? Like, is there a world where they take Evans and brother? And I didn't even, I didn't even bring up Floyd Picard. I mean, that's another name that Oklahoma is kind of, I guess, laid down their flag and said, "Hey, you're going to have to remove us and not be serious about us before we move on." And he's going to take an official visit to Oklahoma. So there's some really good pieces there. They've already got 2 committed. 5 though? Like 5, even 4. Is that too many?
4 is
Just
not too
mess with the
many.
numbers.
4 is not too many. 5 is too many. And I I don't see any world in which Oklahoma takes 5 defensive tackles. That is an absurd amount. But as you have mentioned in the past, Brandon, on this podcast and on the
Yeah.
live, defensive tackle is a position where Oklahoma will expand their class by 1 if it's the right cast of characters. And
Dominic Williams, prime example, right? They're
to
over on the
me,
scholarships. I'm like, take.
culturally and on tape, I don't see any reason that Oklahoma would turn away either Christian Evans or Cole Breeler or Floyd Boucard unless they fill up, because those 3 guys are all monsters on film.
Right.
Not necessarily the exact same. There's a hierarchy there, certainly. And it seems to be the case that Oklahoma is the highest on Boucard, I would say, which is understandable. He's already built to play defensive tackle in the SEC, and he is a hellion on tape. But you look at Breeler and Evans, they're exciting tools there, man. They play angry, they disrupt, and you talk to either one of those guys, they are very well aligned in their personalities and everything that they're about with everything that Oklahoma values and espouses as a football program. And so I know Christian Evans is on the fastest timeline here. He is committing sometime this month. The month of May is when and it will be May by the time this podcast drops. So yes, sometime this month you can expect a commitment from Christian Evans.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about it being Oklahoma for him. I have a future cast in. With Cole Breeler, he's OVing on the 21st of June. Floyd Boucard is OVing on the 14th of June. As I mentioned, Oklahoma loves Boucard.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a world, there's virtually no world whatsoever in which Floyd Boucard wants to commit to Oklahoma and Oklahoma tells him no or holds him off. But
is it a world with Breeler?
If, let's say, Boucard commits on June 14th and Breeler wants to come in and commit on June 21st over the Champion Barbecue, somebody has to get the boot, right? Like, somebody is the odd man out. And I don't know who that is. I don't want to speculate on who that is. I'm glad I'm not the one that has to make those decisions, but you can't take 5 defensive tackles. You just can't.
Come on, Parker. You know who it's going to be. Why don't you just go in and tell us? That's what we're watching for. And no, we really don't. I'm just making a joke, by the way.
And hopefully, I say hopefully, would it be awesome if they had their pick of 4 or 5 really good defensive tackles? Sure. But I think what you hope for everybody involved is that somebody cools on Oklahoma and the Sooners can just proceed with 4 guys that are all really, really good football players and all make sense for everything that Oklahoma is about. So whether it's Boucard that ends up elsewhere or Breeler or Christian Evans, whatever, I think from where I stand, just knowing all of those guys and wanting what's best for them, I would hope one of them on their visit to Oklahoma or on another visit decides, no, you know what? I'd rather be here, because that just makes life easier all the way around for everybody.
Mhm. Yeah. It would make life easier, but if you're an OU fan, you're also sitting there going, gosh, I hope get everybody and make them make a decision on who they don't want. Because that's the dream. OU fans have waited and waited to be able to recruit at the level that they're recruiting at defensive tackle. At no point do they want to be where they're like telling people no, because that's just when you haven't had. It's like when somebody tries to tell a poor person that they shouldn't do this or this or take the money for this and this. It's easy to say if you've had money your whole life, right?
Yeah.
Well, OU and defensive tackle recruiting is that poor person. And now they've been getting Dejon Terry and Grayson Halton and David Stone and Jaden Jackson and, you know, Nigel Smith and obviously Trent Wilson and Kamari Morris. So now you're like, bring it. The more the better. You can never have enough. Trust us, we know. We had none for a long time. So I can also see the fans' perspective on this one. You make room for as many defensive tackles as you want and let the chips fall how they may. What's another good position to talk about right now? Wide receiver recruiting? I'll let you go there because I don't know how they finish that out.
It feels
or
like
they just don't take another at all, maybe.
Yeah, it feels like we're in the same kind of lull that we had immediately following the Zion Kearney and KJ Daniels recruitments, where, you kind of wondered who's next, who's going to emerge. And nobody really did emerge. There were some names we were throwing around, but we didn't find out until June that Zion Reagans was going to OV to Oklahoma. Ivan Carrion and Dozie Ezukanma, who RIP as far as his place in the class, those guys didn't even get OU offers until they came and camped. Yeah. So Oklahoma ended up with 5 wide receivers committed by the end of the month of July. But at this point on the calendar, there were only 2 guys locked in, and it wasn't immediately apparent who the other one at that point. We thought it was going to be 1 more. It ended up being 3 more. We weren't really sure who the last one was going to be. And I kind of feel like we're in a similar spot right now because it could just as easily be Andrew Marsh or Emmanuel Choice or Quincy Porter or Cortez Mills. Is there somebody I'm forgetting? Feels like there's somebody I'm forgetting. Caleb Cunningham. There you go. That's another guy that's going to OV with Oklahoma. Yeah. So I don't know right now who that guy is. What I do know is that Emmett Jones is a bad man when it comes to the recruiting game. And so whoever he caps off this class with, whether it's 1 more spot or whether it's 2 more spots, I mean, you go down that list of names, right? None of those guys are scrubs. Right. Not a single one of those guys. Like Cortez Mills, Quincy Porter, those are both top 100 players nationally. Andrew Marsh is a top 50 player in the country, according to Rivals. Emmanuel Choice, he is long overdue for his 4th star. He'll get it at some point. And then Caleb Cunningham, again, just like Andrew Marsh, top 50 player in the country. So 4 of the 5 are top 100 players. And the 5th is somebody that Emmett Jones offered before anybody else, and he now has north of 30 scholarship offers. So I don't know who Emmett gets. What I know is whoever Emmett does get, boy, they are going to be the finishing touch and or touches on a fantastic crop of wideouts in the 2025 class. And to think, like, imagine telling anybody 6 months ago, OU's not even going to get an official visit from Isaiah Mosey, but they'll be in play up until the end for Quincy Porter out of New Jersey and Caleb Cunningham out of Mississippi. Emmett just works magic, man. That man, he earns his paycheck.
Yeah, it's wild times, right? All right, let's talk before we head out of here. Let's talk a little basketball, transfer portal stuff. I'm not really wanting to talk about it, but I guess we should. Porter Moser has landed, and his crew have landed 2, I believe, portal commits.
3 total.
3? Well, yeah,
Kobe
2 this
Elvis,
past. Yeah,
transfer
but
guard from Dayton.
we've talked about Kobe Elvis already on a previous podcast. I'm talking about since this week. They've landed 2.
Jaden Jones, transfer swingman from Long Beach State, good 3-point shooter.
Yep.
And Bryson Goodine, who will be suiting up for his 4th collegiate institution. He has spent time at Stanford. I'm sorry, not Stanford. He has spent time at Syracuse and at Providence, and was most recently at Fairfield,
Where he dominated, by the way.
He is now going to be an Oklahoma Sooner. Jaden Jones is a good 3-point shooter. Bryson Goodine is an excellent 3-point shooter, 47% from beyond the arc last season. And okay, it's one thing to shoot 47% at a mid-major. Can you shoot 47% in the SEC? Jury's still out on that one. But the Sooners could have done much worse than the duo of Jaden Jones and Bryson Goodine this last week in the portal. If nothing else, you got 2 guys that are going to be dangerous anytime they get in the vicinity of the 3-point line. Now, it does suck. It unambiguously, unequivocally sucks that you went 0 for 3 with the local guys. The guys where you felt like you had to have one of them, be it Sean Padula or Kevin Overton or Brandon Garrison. It especially sucks that in the case of the latter, Brandon Garrison, he committed somewhere he didn't even visit during the portal process. He committed to a school he's never even been to. And not only that, not only did you miss on those 3, you missed on Aaron Scott, who was 2 hours down the road at North Texas and has a sister on the OU women's basketball team. So that sucks too.
But how does that happen?
I mean, I know St. John's incentivized Aaron Scott to commit to them, certainly. But
okay, but OU has been incentivizing everybody right now.
I don't know. Like it feels like the Sooners have missed every single layup throughout this process.
Golly.
They got Kobe Elvis over several other interested schools. They got Jaden Jones over several other high-profile schools that were interested. Same with Bryson Goodine, but felt like Sean Padula had all the reason in the world to want to come to Oklahoma.
Same with Brandon Garrison.
Had plenty of reason. It felt like Aaron Scott had every reason. Maybe there wasn't as much reason with Kevin Overton, but even so, with that guy, he got in the portal. The very first visit he made was the visit to Oklahoma. And so
that doesn't bode well for Dominic Williams.
Maybe they weren't slam dunks, but they certainly maybe they weren't slam dunks, but they certainly felt like layups. And the Sooners went 0 for 4 with the layups. But they're
how do you commit to a school that you've never even visited?
Ask Peyton Kirkland.
That's fair. How did that go for him?
Exactly. So need a front court piece now. That's what's important moving forward. They need a front court piece.
Yeah.
Brody Lusk is doing an awesome job for us over at OU Insider, staying on top of all things transfer portal related for OU hoops. Sounding like Ugonna Onyenso.
I was going to let you pronounce that. Good job.
Sounds like he's the guy that Oklahoma's put a red eye on, if you will. Braxton Mia from Washington was another guy that Brody had reported OU had a lot of interest in. He committed to Nebraska today. So that was kind of that was the B tier option for Oklahoma behind Onyenso. So they're doing battle from what Brody has reported with Alabama and Louisville for his commitment.
Ooh, that's tough.
Yeah, those are 2 tough customers to go up against. But if the Sooners can add an above average front court piece, maybe with really good coaching, and I think Porter Moser's a really good coach. Again, I don't know how he squeezed 20 wins out of that team last year when you look at that roster on paper, but he did. So maybe there's enough there that You can coax a 500 team out of that roster next year.
Just remember, Sam Godwin's coming back, so at least you got that go for you.
The expectations will not be high for this team heading into next year.
You think they'll be voted last in the SEC?
I don't know if they'll be voted last. They certainly won't be voted in the top 10.
So I guess the other question, have you seen what Arkansas and Calipari, have you seen their social media, how every time they sign a transfer, they do like this cool little quick video about added to the roster?
Yeah.
Check. OU's social team for football is amazing. Their basketball team is slacking, man. Like that should be what you're doing. You want to create buzz with your portal stuff. That's all Calipari and them are doing is creating buzz on top of buzz. By every time they get somebody, they throw it out there and get everybody hyped. They announce it. And they announce it quick. Right? There's got to be a better way of how OU is attacking things in a variety of ways. So I don't know. I'm not going to go on a Porter rant. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I'm sit back and watch and see how the 2024-25 season plays out. But my money is on them not being very good. Just a guess.
It's going to be like, regardless of who else you get from here on out, it's going to be hard to get excited about OU basketball.
Yeah.
I think that's the only honest way to look at it.
It's
going to be hard to get excited.
New conference just sucks. Like it shouldn't be this way. And I know they tried. Like when you said there was a lot of reasons for Brandon Garrison to go to Oklahoma, there was a lot of reasons.
Yes, there were.
Big bag full of reasons. And it didn't happen. Same thing with Padula. Same thing with Scott. Like it didn't. I was like, you're like, what? Make it make sense. But that shows you the view of OU's basketball program right now. So if Porter goes out and he actually wins with this roster this year, he's going to have to redo the whole roster all over again anyways. But
well, and here's
that's the crappy part. But it'll have some buzz.
The paradox of it all. I think that regardless of who else they get in the portal from here on out, if you're above 500, that's a good coaching job. I think if you're above that's 500 fair. With that roster, that's a good coaching job. But like, even though I would view that as a success relative to expectations,
your ass is gone.
If you don't make the tournament, man, like heads roll. That's how it goes. That's how it's going to be.
They'll go back there. This door, the door over here. I forgot how to do the green screen thing. It's always opposite. The door over here. And they would say, Porter, go ahead and exit stage left, homie. So we better make the tournament next year. And right now, it ain't looking good. It's not good. I will say he's going to an easier conference, theoretically, than the Big 12. So that's good. But and I think the Lloyd Noble will be more hopping just because of names like Florida, Kentucky, Arkansas, LSU, Tennessee, Auburn will be coming into town, and that'll create some buzz, right? Because it's new, it's fresh, it's new, right? Because no matter how good the Big 12 was, I'm sorry, I know that Baylor's really good at basketball. I know that West Virginia is normally really good at basketball, and I know that TCU is good. I know that Houston's great. But those names don't shudder, ooh, like the SEC names do. You know what I mean? University athletic departments, big names are big names. Unfortunately for the Big 12 is they just don't have it. There's nothing big about those. Like Kansas, yes. It's always going to attract a big crowd. But there's like 12 Kansases in the SEC.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Well,
talking like history or anything. I'm talking just by name of the university,
and
of the
here's the thing.
school.
Nobody's going to want to show up to watch you get drubbed by those schools.
Well, that's fair too.
If you field a competitive team, okay, like you may see an attendance boost. But if you suck, trust me, that building will not be full when a program like Alabama comes to town and just unloads on you.
That would just suck, but it is what it is. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. If you're not a member of OU Insider, go over there. I'm telling you, we've got so much information on Dominic Williams, on other portal targets, on recruiting, 25, 26, 27, tons of notes, whether it's quarterback, whether it's tight end, whether it's defensive back, offensive line, D-line, safety, like 5-star safety note, got it over there. Top 250, top 100 safety note, got it over there. Got 22, 20, 27 quarterbacks that Park and I both wrote about that Oklahoma's looking at and could be offering down the line. Got it over there. Will be potentially their top 2 quarterbacks in the class that they go after. 2026, how things are fleshing out as far as quarterback goes. Got it over there. Tight end recruiting in 2025. Got it over there. Tight end recruiting in 2026. We've got it there. Defensive tackle recruiting. Got it. Offensive line. Got it. Like all of it's there right now for you to read on OU Insider VIP. And it's way more in depth than anything we've talked about on here. Plus, you get to mingle with all of the big names as far as our staff goes, whether it's Jesse, whether it's Parker, whether it's myself, Brian. And we have some news coming up here pretty soon as far as why you would want to go over there. Maybe some former player or so being over there more often, talking with y'all, giving his thoughts on the program, any information that he has or all that. It's all over there. Plus another great addition, potential addition, to the staff and our podcasting news coming up. So all of that all over there. OU Insider VIP. We've got some stuff coming for you. Please go subscribe. $9.95 a month or $99.95 will get you through all the way to this time in 2025. Also, if you want all the new podcast stuff that we are working on bringing you, subscribe, because it's going to be vast. It's going to be complex. It's going to be all about college football. It's going to be all about recruiting. It's going to be all about a bunch of different things that you as a Sooners fan will love if you love all sports at the University of Oklahoma. So subscribe to this YouTube channel right here, or whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on right now. All right. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed night.